If you are not somewhat excited for Florida and LSU this weekend, I am not sure what is wrong with you because if history is any indication, we've got a thrilling matchup potentially in the swamp this weekend. Welcome in to another episode of All Kinds of Weather Forecast. I am your host, Chris Yanes, here in the heart of Gator Nation. And let me tell you, we've got a jam-packed show today. And hot off the presses, breaking news, star quarterback DJ Lagway will be available for this matchup. We're definitely going to lead off and talk about that here in the show. Of course, the Gators are going to be facing the number 21 LSU Tigers, and we've got everything here for you to get prepared, previewing the game, breaking down the key matchups, and discussing how Florida can take down the Tigers and ruin their hopes for an SEC title bid. And don't look now, guys, but recruiting is back in Gainesville. If you have not seen it yet, there is an elite list of visitors coming to Gainesville this weekend. We will talk all about it and give you the rundown on who will be in the swamp. Might even be getting some commitments here in the near future. Before we dive into the show, though, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single episode of All Kinds of Weather Forecasts. And hey, don't forget to hit the like button down below. Fire it up for us this weekend, Gator Nation. Show your support. It means everything to us so we can get the content out to you all. And we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment down below. Give us your prediction. Will the Gators pull off the upset against LSU this weekend? And let us know what you think. And we might feature your thoughts in our next show. Tonight, we're actually going to be reading some comments from our last show, the Texas post game, and also taking some fan questions on Twitter at the end. And if you're listening on our audio platforms, please take a moment to rate and review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps us reach even more listeners. We appreciate it, Gator Nation. And of course, the All Kinds Weather Forecast is proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants. And they offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, or even your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, contact them at 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. And last but not least, we are proudly partnered with Heads and Tails, the official apparel provider for the All Kinds of Weather Forecast. Take advantage of our code IAKOW30 for 30% off in store here in Tampa, Florida, or online at theheadsandtails.com. Gear up for the LSU game this Saturday. Gear up for the remainder of this season. All right, so let's get into it. We've got the big matchup in the swamp this weekend. The Florida Gators take on the LSU Tigers in the swamp in what always is traditionally a crazy game. There is always something to remember by this. Everybody knows probably some infamous moments that they want to forget from this. Of course, I think a lot of Gator fans have it in their mind. The moment 5 years ago, or 4 years ago now, it seems so long ago, that Marco Wilson threw the shoe that cost Florida a chance at a college football playoff berth and maybe a championship that season, where the Gators went down in the fog that night, 37-34. There were the fake field goals in the 2010s with Les Miles and the old Mad Hatter. And then, of course, Florida had their own magic, of course, in 2018, intercepting Joe Burrow for the first time in his college career. That was the last time the Gators did win this game. This marks the 71st matchup between Florida and LSU, the 35th all-time in Gainesville. Florida trailing slightly in the series, 33-34-3. But as I mentioned, LSU has won 5 of the last matchup. But the story now of this game and what everybody wanted to know before tonight, would DJ Lagway be available for this game? And that is really because of the fact of how poor the performance was last week against Texas, and really the last 6 quarters since he went down midway through the second quarter against Georgia. Florida's offense was incredibly pedestrian, and that's putting it nicely. But with DJ Lagway back into the starting lineup, the Florida Gators certainly have a chance now to win on Saturday. He gives them that elite playmaking ability that we've all come to know. And let's not also forget Elijah Badger in the radio show where Billy Napier confirmed DJ Lagway would be playing. Elijah Badger is also playing in this game. He rejoins the squad after missing the Texas game. So now we have our top two receivers and Chimdike and Elijah Badger at one point this season, both averaging over 20 yards a catch. Chimdike has slipped down a little bit down to about 18.7 yards a catch, but still together those guys give Florida a lethal passing attack. And Florida definitely will have the ability to do that against this LSU team, I believe, where they have now, their defense has struggled in the last two games of their own, where they're coming off two straight consecutive losses, getting blown out last week at home to Alabama and 2 weeks prior to that against Texas A&M on the road. Florida's defense, though, has certainly got to step up in this game. We all know that they've had some bright spots going into really the Texas game. They kept Florida as long as they could in the Georgia game. They performed really well against Kentucky, against Tennessee, UCF, but they took a huge step back against Texas. And they have a lot of injuries to contend with. Jason Marshall out for the season. Devin Moore out indefinitely. We don't know when he'll be back, his availability. He's out again for this game. So Florida now is relegated to some talented third string players, but inexperienced youth on that side of the defense that they're going to have to contend with some big LSU receivers that we'll talk about tonight. So can the Gators get that going? But because DJ Lagway is available for this game, he is going to be able to stretch the field and give Florida an elite playmaking ability in this matchup. I mean, we saw what he was able to do in that touchdown pass against Georgia, what he was able to do to lead the Gators to victory against Kentucky, and certainly kept Florida in it against Tennessee after Graham Mertz went down. He has over 1,000 yards on the season, 6 touchdowns to 5 interceptions with a 61% completion percentage and 114 on the ground. So with DJ Lagway back, with Elijah Badger back, who's also our leading receiver, Florida's offense is good to go. I am still a little weary, though, with DJ Lagway back in the starting lineup. How healthy is he? I think that hamstring injury was pretty horrific to see. Anytime you're carted off the field, most people believe that's curtains on your season. You're not going to come back, especially late in the season where we are right now. But the fact that he is available to play is a good sign. But I still believe those hamstring injuries, as we all know, can linger. And this one I still think potentially could limit him. So I wouldn't expect him to be as much of a running threat in this game as a passing threat. And that's okay because Florida can win this game without the legs of DJ Lagway. They can certainly win it with his arm, and they can win it with the rushing attack that they have on this side of the ball. Now, with the running game, Montrell Johnson Jr. has been out since the Tennessee game when he was hurt in that matchup. He's been listed as questionable on the last several injury reports. He is once again questionable. Billy Napier would not confirm his availability for this game. But I think Florida has an opportunity to really impose their will on the line of scrimmage. They were able to do it even last week at times where they rushed combined between Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson for over 200 yards on the ground. It was the lone bright spot against Texas. And they're going to have an opportunity to do this against an LSU team that's averaging 150 yards given up on the ground against SEC opponents. So this is a chance for Florida to win the game running the ball, to take that pressure off of a hampered DJ Lagway. And then by virtue of being able to run the ball, hopefully playing complementary football that opens up the passing game. Now, LSU's offense, led by Garrett Nussmeier, a familiar name to some Gator fans as his dad was once the offensive coordinator here at the University of Florida back in the Jim McElwain days, has had a prolific season from a passing standpoint. I mean, he certainly has put up much bigger numbers than Florida to this date. Almost 2,900 yards. He's completing 63% of his passes, 21 touchdowns, but 11 interceptions. Much, like Georgia, who turned the ball over to us a couple of weeks ago with 3 interceptions in Carson Beck. Garrett Nussmeier has also become a little bit of a turnover machine of his own. And that is a situation where you hope Florida could potentially take advantage of this in a crowd that's going to be behind them in this game. Kyron Lacey, their leading receiver, on pace for 1,000 yards this season. He is going to be who the Gators are going to have to contend with. And not just him, but Aaron Anderson, who's not too far behind with 641 yards, both combining for 11 touchdowns and almost 16 yards a catch. So a pretty good duo right there that Florida's going to have to contend with against, like we talked about, third string defensive backs and Cormani McClain and Deshaun Johnson. Can those guys step up? We're going to need them to step up in this. They've had experience now in the last couple of games since Jason Marshall went down against Kentucky and Devin Moore went down against Georgia. This is their opportunity against a home crowd where they're going to have to impose their will against some talented receivers. That is a matchup to look for there. Battle of the trenches, though. This is a line of scrimmage league, as we always talk about. I talked about just in a second ago how Florida, I think, is going to have an opportunity to run the ball. We'll talk about that later in the keys to the game. But the defensive side, one of their more healthy areas is the defensive line right now. Jack Pyburn has played incredible for the Gators this season. Tyreek Sapp has also played very well for Florida. Their linebacker core is slightly hampered, though, unfortunately. And Pup Howard will be out of this game. That was a new injury that was sustained in the Texas game. Unfortunate. He is our second leading tackler in the linebacker room, but Shamar James is good to go. Jaden Robinson projected to get the start. And I don't know if you noticed in the last game, though, the young guys, the freshmen, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, were the two highest graded on Pro Football Focus in that linebacker room. They, I would imagine, are going to get a lot of play time in this game, and will have a solid four-man rotation at the linebacker role. But that defensive line can be able to step up, put some pressure on Garrett Nussmeier in this game, and we'll see if they're able to get to him, rattle him, force him into mistakes, give Florida some shorter fields, and get that momentum, because that is really what is going to help Florida, I think, rule the day if they're able to take advantage of those situations. But nonetheless, we shall see, and that's why we play the game. Now, switching gears here, I don't know if anybody has been paying attention. I think a lot of Gator fans have kind of tuned out of recruiting, shall we say, over the last couple of weeks. And understandably so. Florida has sustained several decommitments over the last couple of weeks because of the rumors of Billy Napier inevitably, which we thought he would be fired and relieved of his duties here in Gainesville. But that, after Scott Strickland last week put out the letter that said he would be remaining the head coach next season, all of a sudden the recruiting has ticked up. And now a paper-popping visitors list here. 5 stars between the classes of 2025 and 2026 will be attending Florida. Now, I know what everyone's going to say, right? They ultimately have to commit. They have to join the program. Why would they come and join a program that may end up with their fourth consecutive losing season and a potential lame duck coach in 2025? All legitimate arguments, but I'll give you 26 million reasons why this potentially could be the start of an uptick in recruiting for Florida. We all heard last week when the news came out that Billy Napier was going to be retained, is that the money that would be used on the buyout potentially then could be reallocated for NIL funds. And that remains to be seen. But if that is true, and the boosters and the program is ready to throw their whole weight behind this recruiting class, behind this transfer portal class, using the funds they would have used to relieve the staff of their duties, and then the also big thing hanging over college football right now, which kicks in next summer, is the revenue sharing from the TV deals for the SEC. That is expected to yield major dividends for every program in the conference, including Florida. Florida may be in a position to be able to offer some really good NIL deals to some of these athletes. Some of the ones to note: 5-star receiver Jamie French at a Mandarin High School, a current Texas commit, on an official visit to Florida. 5-star corner Naeem Offord, an Ohio State commit. Unofficial visits for 5 stars. 5-star cornerback DJ Pickett, an LSU commit, was at the Florida Miami game to start the season. He's back again for another time this year. Five-star receiver Dallas Wilson here out of the Tampa Bay area, an Oregon commit, also coming to the Swamp. And leading out or finishing off the 5 stars is 5-star edge Zion Ely, St. Francis Academy up in the Maryland, Washington, D.C. area. He is a 2026 athlete. And that's just the beginning of this. I think the bigger names that people should keep an eye on are 4-star quarterback Tramel Jones, who today decommitted from Florida State, was a longtime commit there, was leaning or at least listening to Florida before his commitment to Florida State. His dad is a UF graduate, so he's a legacy at the University of Florida. Has now gotten crystal balls on 247 and on 3 prediction to complete the flip to the University of Florida. And now that he's officially visiting, I certainly would put this on commitment watch for us. Now, Tramel Jones is not rated as highly as DJ Lagway. He is a top 250 athlete, just inside the top 250 according to the On3 composite. He's a solid 4-star quarterback, but not an elite 5-star quarterback like DJ Lagway. But you always want to take a quarterback in every single class that you've had. And to date, Billy Napier, and this will be his 4th recruiting class, has only signed 1 high school commit, and that was DJ Lagway. We all know the story, what happened with Jaden Rashada. This is a big deal in the sense that he's actually going to bring in a high school athlete that knows that he's going to sit behind DJ Lagway for 2 years, learn the system, and get himself acquainted with whatever offense potentially is running Gainesville for the seasons to come. But this is something that can get Florida going back in the right direction and recruiting, picking up a blue chip quarterback in your own backyard that you should get. Another guy to watch on this one, and I'll put him on commit watch, 3-star defensive lineman Steven Shivers out of Brentwood in Tennessee. He was committed to Georgia up until last week, decommitted, set an official visit to Florida, and has also gotten some predictions on both 247 and on 3 for the Florida Gators. He is a massive, that run stopper in the middle, that nose tackle that we're going to have to replace. Cam Jackson is leaving the program. Caleb Banks could leave the program to the NFL this season. We're going to need to build that depth back up in the interior side of the defensive line. Steven Shivers fits that bill. Kirby Smart wanted him in his class, took him as a recruit. We all know Georgia loads up their class pretty darn quick. I think this is a good take for Florida. He's a high 3-star, fringe 4-star guy. Good take for the staff in this situation. And look, we've also got other guys that are committed to the program that are going to be visiting that we need to keep in this class. 4-star wide receiver Vernell Brown III. 4-star defensive lineman Jalen Wiggins, who's taking a Notre Dame visit later this month. 4-star tight end Tayshawn Gelsey. 3-star defensive lineman Jeremiah McLeod, who some believe is trending back to Georgia. So this is a big week also to keep guys in there. And Florida is also their 2026 quarterback, Will Griffin, out of the Tampa area. So you could potentially have your 2025 and 2026 quarterbacks on campus this weekend at Florida. So there's a laundry list of guys that are going to be visiting Florida. We'll put it out on the account, so make sure you're following our Twitter account in all kinds of weather. But this is a good sign because the recruiting list were abysmal for visitors through the month of October. We had some really good weekends back in September, on August, when Miami and Texas A&M came to town. We all know Florida laid an egg, and the rumor mill started about Billy Napier's future here. If Florida's able to pull off a win against LSU this weekend in front of what will be a sold-out and raucous crowd in the Swamp, show these guys a good time, it could give them that experience to say, you know what, I really should consider Florida here down the stretch. And then if the money is there in the NIL game to support these guys and facilitate their commitments to Florida, we're off to the races. And all of a sudden, a class that was not even ranked in the top 50 a couple of weeks ago is back in contention to being, I think, at mere minimum, a top 15 class. We did get a question from in EW3 We Trust. He asked us on Twitter, can Florida get a top 15 class? Well, I think it's possible with a commitment, with an official visitors list and unofficial visitors list like this. When you have that much star power in one place, this is the time of year where flip season happens. This was the time last year when Florida saw major guys leave their class where they had a top 5 class at one point and it fell apart. So if Florida is serious about arming this staff and this program with the resources necessary to get these guys on campus and get them committed, we'll know in a couple of weeks on early signing day. But this is a good start. We'll have another big weekend probably next week against Ole Miss coming to town. So we'll have another visitors weekend. These next 2 weeks are going to be really pivotal. And I think Florida will be able to add. I do predict Shivers and Trimell Jones to join the class here in short order. And hopefully that gets a snowball effect for time to come. So with these guys committing, we hope you guys are committed to us. Make sure if you haven't already watching the show, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening, rate and review us. It's free to do so. It's free to do so. It costs a lot of money to bring guys here into the program in the era of NIL, but it is completely free for you to follow us along here. All right, so let's get back players to watch in this game. We talked about DJ Lagway. We talked about the receiving core and Chim Dike and Elijah Badger. Running back room, look, Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson have played well, and it could be icing on the cake if Montrell Johnson comes back. We'll have a three-headed monster there running behind an offensive line. We'll see if Damian George is able to go in this game. He's one of the other guys listed as questionable on the injury report. But those are the guys that are going to be able to get this going for the Gators. So, keys to the game, strategy for Florida to win. Florida's going to have to run the football on this team. Take the pressure off of DJ Lagway. Ultimately, that's really what it comes down to. Can Florida protect him and keep him from getting hurt and getting hit in the pocket, because that could re-aggravate the hamstring injury? I don't think he's going to be running for his life back there. So they're going to have to protect him against this LSU defensive line. So protect DJ Lagway, run the football, and the padlock stack that I've always had when you've got to pull these upsets. We've got to be +2 in the turnover margin. When we're +2, we have a chance to win. We had it against Georgia until the rails fell off late in that game. But that's the key right there. That's the key to springing an upset, is you got to force turnovers. In a home crowd, I'm looking for Florida to really impose their will and take advantage of that. So +2 in the turnover margin. I'm going to say run for 200 yards. I think we're going to really have to run the football to win this game, take that pressure off Lagway. As I mentioned, and by virtue then, my final key is protect DJ Lagway and keep him from running all over the field. We will get to predictions in a moment, but kind of one of the things we wanted to start here on the show are fan questions. We want to make this a little more interactive for you guys and make you a part of the show, because we certainly appreciate your listenership, your support, and kind of reading some of the comments from the last show. Some people were saying they love the content, but feel that we need to be kind of talking about the comments in this. So Frankie Golden, I think that's how he says his name. Frankie, shout out to you. For those that are now going to be asking questions, having their comments read, you can thank Frankie for this, because now we're going to be doing that. But we appreciate your support, Frankie. Crazy Anime Gamer, the 3, says, as long as Scott Strickland is AD, Florida will never have a serious football program. This was a disaster, and as expected, a disaster, but still. Yeah, I mean, look, I think despite what happens for the rest of the season, despite what happens on Saturday, Florida has a reckoning. They have to look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, do you want to be a serious program? And the actions over the next couple of weeks and months will tell us how serious they are, because all the actions leading to this point, not just the last few years under the Napier regime, but you dating back 10 plus years, indicate we're always behind the times, always a step behind. We should not be begging for money to have an elite NIL game right now in year 3 of a coach who has a losing record. It should have been in place when NIL became legal in 2021. And when we hired a new coach to equip him, who we knew had an ability to recruit in his previous stops, that would have been something we should have had aligned. But we're always constantly behind the 8 ball. So, yes, Florida over the next couple of months is going to prove whether or not they are a serious program. Taino 727, the standard is so low at UF. We're 6-6 and making a bowl game would be acceptable. It's not acceptable. We cannot lower our standards here at the University of Florida. Where is the Gator standard? Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier created essentially the Gator standard. Dan Mullen gave it the moniker in his time here, lived up to it for 3 years, fell off a cliff in his fourth, and we all know the rest. But 6-6 is not the standard. It would be nice to get to the bowl game this year. Then we have a lot of young guys on this team that could use those 15 additional practices that you get by virtue of making a bowl game. It puts us in a position, if we are 6-6 with a win against, let's say, LSU this weekend and FSU to end the season, you could have your first winning record since the 2020 season. It's been 4 whole years since that's happened. But no, going forward, 6-6 is not the standard. It never has been here in the modern era of Florida football since 1990. And because we're keeping Billy Napier, and this will be his 4th season next year, I said at the beginning of the season, I could see a scenario where 6-6 was good enough to keep Napier, given how difficult the schedule was and how it looked. It hasn't looked great, just being frank. And I honestly, I've my doubts about this. That this is going to work out. So moving forward, though, in year 4, next year, the standard, the expectation is you're competing for a berth in the college football playoff, especially if you are going to put your money where your mouth is. And retaining this roster, supporting it, having them go through another offseason together, your star quarterback, DJ Lagway. Hopefully you bring in some great guys to the transfer portal in the high school ranks here late down the stretch. But no, 9-10 wins is going to get back to that standard. I think Gator fans are not disillusioned with the fact that every year you're going to go undefeated. We've never done that in school history, but win 11 games, go 11-1. I mean, this is a very competitive SEC conference. Look how many teams are competing for the SEC championship berth right now. I think there's 6 or 7. Even LSU with 3 losses could technically get in as a 9-3 team, and they would win if they win the SEC, get in the college football playoff as a 10-3 team. So Florida really just needs to be putting themselves in a position at the end of the year where they're at 9-10 win team every single year. They're going to have a chance to make the SEC championship game and to compete for a college football playoff. Obviously, you would love to win 11, 12 games to really guarantee that. But that's at the bare minimum should be the standard. 9-10 wins in this new era of college football to make the college football playoff. And that's what it has to be. So, yes. 6-6 is not the standard. One more question here, and I love this one. It was at Mr. Bassman 97. Remember when we beat LSU by 52? I think what Mr. Bassman is referring to is the 1993 game where Florida won 58-3. If you have never seen that, Google it, watch it on YouTube. It was an absolute drubbing in Baton Rouge. In the 1990s, LSU was in worse shape of a program, quite frankly, than Florida is now. And then when Nick Saban came to town in 1999 and changed the good fortunes of that program. A couple more Twitter questions here that wanted to get to tonight. Lucas Demand Gator. What's up, Lucas? Does Tramel Jones commit this weekend since he will be at the game? Lucas, I think Florida has a really good chance with Tramel Jones coming to town this weekend. The fact that he not only decommitted to Florida State, but then immediately set up his official visit. We're seeing the predictions fly in. I like Tramel Jones to end up in this class. Would not be shocked if it happened this weekend after the game. And finally, the last question of the night, Matthew Walker asks, favorite all-time victory over LSU? I love reminiscing about the good times here at Florida, Matthew. Thank you for asking the question. I'll give you 2 memories. I'll give you an in-person memory, and I'll give you on TV. First one, on TV, 2001, Florida at LSU, 44-15. Rex Grossman set a school record for passing that day, which would stand until Tim Tebow broke it nearly a decade later. That was a clinic. If another thing to go and Google and look on YouTube, it was a complete highlight reel up and down the sideline to Jabbar Gaffney, Rashae Caldwell, Taylor Jacobs, to name a few guys out there. That was the game where, for the second year in a row, Florida 40-pieced Nick Saban. Let me say that again. Florida 40-pieced Nick Saban 2 years in a row, 2000 and 2001. Obviously, he was just getting started as a head coach in the SEC and at LSU. But by golly, I don't think we ever saw that again in college football. Florida was so elite at that time with the offense they had, in large part to Steve Spurrier's funny gun and Rex Grossman. What an incredible game. Highway robbery that Rex Grossman did win the Heisman. Favorite TV memory there. And then in person, 2018 LSU. I mean, Brad Stewart's pick six against Joe Burrow. That place was electric. I mean, I was at the time was in just graduated University of Florida earlier that spring, so I had my recent grad tickets, which are on the student section side. It was a mosh pit in there when he housed that to win the game, and I do remember I had the sinking feeling though that because he scored that touchdown and we kicked the extra point to only go up by 8, the game actually in effect was not over. If you would have gone down and just deed it out, Florida could have finished the game there. Florida did go on and actually intercept Joe Burrow again. I believe it was Donovan Steiner that got the next interception to close that game out. But Matthew, there's a lot of good memories in the LSU rivalry. Obviously, a lot of Gator fans are going to reminisce against the Marco Wilson one, but and the fake field goals that Les Miles, the Mad Hatter got us, the 5 fourth down conversions in the 2007 game on the road in Baton Rouge. But there are some good memories in this game. 2018 certainly comes to mind. The last time the Gators were victorious in this rivalry. Can they do it again? We shall see. Thank you all for those questions. We're going to keep doing this every week. Might even keep making it more of a feature of our show because we want you guys to be a part of this and enjoy the content that we bring you. All right. It's time to talk about predictions, final thoughts for this game. If you're going up to Gainesville, be loud, be proud. It's a 3:30 kickoff on ABC, that all familiar 3:30 kickoff game like it used to be in the old great times in the 2000s against LSU. Florida opened up as a 5.5 point underdog. They've now closed that to 4. I think Vegas may have already had an inkling that maybe DJ Lagway would play in this game. If he didn't, I think that line severely goes the other direction, but it didn't. It dropped a little bit, and I think with DJ Lagway playing, Florida has a chance. The over-under in this game is 55.5, where both defenses have been struggling in their recent matchups. So I talked about my keys. We got to protect Lagway. We got to run for 200 yards. We got to be +2 in the turnover margin to win this game. I think Florida is going to play up for this game. And this is a crazy rivalry. You've got a situation where we had the shoe throw game 4 years ago. And since that game, 49 games ago, this is the 50th game since the night that Marco Wilson embarrassed the program on national television, ruined Florida's championship hopes, and has been 20-29 as a program since that moment, has held over us like a noose. Florida needs a win over LSU to show that something can be potentially different. Hopium is a heck of a drug. And I think there was a lot of articles with these visitors list, with the line being so close, with DJ Lagway now being available, Elijah Badger as well. There's a little bit of hope now back in the system. The Gators need to take advantage of that. And when I think about this, every time it seems like fans are just doubting the program and things aren't going right. There was a similar feeling before the Mississippi State game and the UCF game, and Florida took care of business. Florida has not beat a ranked opponent yet this season. In fact, all 5 losses are to ranked opponents. It's been chalk this season. The Gators on Saturday against a reeling LSU team, I'm going to say pull an upset and find a way to get a win this Saturday. I'm going to go with a score of 31-27 Gators, a 4-point win in the other direction. So by virtue, picking the Gators to cover the spread and also win outright in this game, getting slightly over on the over-under total. I think Florida is going to have to play. They're going to have to play lights out on offense. I think they're going to have to score a lot because I do think LSU is going to get theirs in the passing game. They've shown an ability to do that now in the last two matchups where they have absolutely torched and shredded Florida since Brian Kelly has been there. But I do think Florida makes some plays in this game with DJ Lagway, with the running game, and they get it done in the swamp by a score of 31-27. But hey, listen, I'm one opinion. We'll be putting out our staff predictions on the week. Make sure so that you're following along on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, subscribed here on YouTube. We'll be dropping those predictions, and leave us your predictions down in below in the comments. Let us know what you think. Am I crazy for saying that the Gators can get a win this Saturday, or do you think it's upset as possible? Let us know down below. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe. We appreciate you watching. And of course, take advantage of that code IAKOW30 in store or online at theheadsandtails.com. We certainly appreciate our partnership with them this season. And make sure to join us next week for some more good content. Like I said, we'll be asking you to give us our questions. Leave some good comments. We'll read them live here on the show. And can't wait to recap this game next week. So until next time, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the In All Kinds Weather Forecast. I am your host, Chris Yanes. You can follow me at Mr. Crispitz. Go Gators, beat LSU.